Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of CEO Conversations, the Private Practice Podcast. It's Brandy here, and I am so excited because we have a treat. We are putting together some of the really great episodes that we've had over the past couple of years. And so this is our self-care bundle that we've put together for you. So one thing that I see a lot of is private practice owners neglecting is the self-care. Is the number one thing that we dive into when it comes to CEO systems, how you're showing up with your time, how are you taking care of yourself, how is your energy? Because at the foundation of any thriving practice is a thriving CEO, and it's a CEO who makes sure, like without a doubt, that they are taking care of themselves, that they are putting them at the top of the list and not at the bottom. So when you've got schedules to fill, patients to keep happy, and payroll to cover, self-care tends to fall to the bottom of the barrel and falls to the back seat and gets put on the back burner. Like any way you want to cut it, any saying, it happens. So I am here lovingly to remind you to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success. So I invite you to do a self-care reset because the truth is there's no one-size-fits-all routine model. I love this because there's a lot of times where people think, oh, if I wake up at 5 a.m. every single morning, if I make sure I go to bed at the perfect time, if I make sure that I am just have like this magical schedule, everything is going to fall into place. And that's not true. A lot of great self-care is based on you knowing yourself and what makes your cup feel filled and full, and how are you going to show up as your best self, right? And so when you naturally incorporate those things, all things start to fall into place. So there is no self-care routine that is one size fits all. And it's all based on the season of your life. So I'm super excited about the first episode that you're going to hear from Chianti Lomax. I mean, amazing, amazing. So she's going to talk to how to build a self-care practice rooted in purpose, not perfection, because we all have things that we are going through. Life is always lifing, and why happier people tend to be more productive and resilient. The second episode, which I'm super excited about, is from Dr. Lisa Folden, who unpacks how diet culture and perfectionism disconnects us from our bodies. So I absolutely love Lisa. She was with us in LA for our Own Your CEO Status retreat. She did such an amazing demonstration about what happens when you do not put yourself as a priority and why your value has nothing to do with the size or your schedule when it comes to how you take care of yourself. Then we're going to wrap up this self-care reset with Dr. Felicia Ivey, who reminds us why sleep is so important. I mean, seriously, how was your sleep last night? Did you get a good night's sleep? Yes, no, maybe, maybe not. Well, you have to in order for you to show up. And so we even dive into the people who get the most sleep actually make the most money, just so you know. So sleep is so valuable. She's also going to remind us the most powerful leadership tools that we have and how prioritizing rest helps you show up for your life and your team and your goals. So get ready. This is a value-packed episode with so many great conversations. So take notes. I hope it's a nice reset for you. Listen to what's resonating with you. And I cannot wait for you to dive in. So I hope that this episode is here to give you permission to meet yourself where you are and to reprioritize caring for yourself in whatever way you need to in this season. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Welcome to CEO Conversations, the Private Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. So I know that you say that, self-care isn't an activity. And there's so many things out in the space where like, do this for your morning routine, do this for your nighttime routine, do this, like wake up at 5 a.m., wake up, go to bed by 9 p.m. And I think some of it's helpful and then some of it's very harmful. And I can speak from my journey where I'm like, oh, something's wrong with me if I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. every single morning, or something's wrong with me because I can't get to bed by 9 p.m. every night. And really being able to step into what I love you say, the self-awareness, what really makes you tick as a person. So what are some ways that we can maybe realistically have a morning routine or a nighttime routine or just a self-care routine that makes sense for us?
Well, first off, we have to know that there is no cookie cutter way to take care of ourselves that I can apply to Chianti, Brandy can apply to herself. You have to ask the question, what do I need right now? Because what I needed in 2017 might look different from what Chianti needed in 2024. Because of the season of life, you have to first be very respectful of the season of life you're in. If you're in a busier season, your morning routine is going to look different, right? And so you may not be able to light the candle, do the journaling, do the yoga, do the walk. So it's like, what do I need today that would give me the energy or the power to get through this day? And then answer that question. So that might look like, instead of the 5 things in my morning routine, I am going to at least get up and journal for 10 minutes because I have a busy schedule. Or I am going to at least have have some tea by myself on my porch and then get the kids ready for school. So I don't believe in saying these are the 10 things you have to do. These are the 5 things. No, I believe you have to ask yourself, what do I need today? And at nighttime, what do I need tonight? So it's really about creating an authentic self-care plan. I don't believe in the cookie cutter plan. So that's my answer. What do I need? And then give yourself that.
That's so good, so good. I think that because everyone who's listening are wellness practitioners, physicians, therapists, just a really conglomerate of folks who take care of other people. That's their job. They always are continuously taking care of other people, and that's a big weight that can be put on people's shoulders. And I think the number one question I always get asked is how am I supposed to incorporate this in my schedule? And so I love what you're saying is there's different seasons and just asking yourself, like, what do I need in this moment in order for me to show up as my best self?
Absolutely.
And that's going to look different compared to maybe a season that's maybe a little bit more calm or a season
Mhm.
that might be a little bit more busy, or right now we're in summer, even though outside it doesn't look like summer. But
Right.
like it's raining here, guys.
Yeah.
But with that, how just giving people permission
Yeah.
to meet themselves where they are is what I hear is truly, truly what I hear you saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've done a lot of research on happiness and you have a whole book, like a whole book, amazing book, Evolving While Black,
Mhm.
the ultimate guide to happiness and transformation on your own terms. So
Yes.
of course we're going to put all the information, the show links, everything else too.
Mhm.
But you talk about why happiness matters. And so I just want to quote a couple of the bullet
Mhm.
points from the book.
Love it.
Happy people are generally in better health, get sick less often, and tend to live longer. Happy people are more likely to have fulfilling marriages, relationships, and friendships. Happy people are more charitable. Happy people cope better with stress and trauma. Happy people are more creative and are better able to see the big picture. And I love that because the first bullet actually says happy people make more money and are typically more productive at work.
Yeah.
So tell us more about like just the happiness journey. Tell us more about the book and just how did you land on the topic of happiness?
That's a good question. So I've been teaching um, on happiness since 2015. And it started from my coaching business. So I started coaching women, right, to create their own versions of happiness. And what I'm really teaching is tools for joy, healing, and transformation. But happiness just feels better. I tell people all the time I'm teaching tools for like resilience and I'm teaching tools for overcoming. But when you say happiness, it's like giving people sugar with the medicine. So what I'm really teaching you are these actual practical tools, but I lump it under happiness because it's a byproduct of doing your internal work, which is why I say happiness. And what my teachings are rooted in is the science of positive psychology. So a while back, I fell in love with this science of flourishing. And I realized that a lot of the things that were from this science were very practical things that you could do on a day-to-day basis. And I put it in my coaching framework. So what falls under that happiness umbrella, right? The science of happiness is what people call it too, is positivity, engagement, relationships, meaning and purpose, achievement, and vitality. And so I said, well, I'm teaching these things, I'm coaching around these things, and I'm not reaching a lot of people, but I feel like a lot more people could use this. And why not put what I'm teaching and coaching around and put it in a book form? So it's like you have my coaching methodology in your pocketbook. I'm country, pocketbook, right? You have my coach methodology in your ears, and it's touching more people. And the reason why I wanted to lean into it, because I think one of the things that I realized growing up and just, being a Black woman in America is a lot of times the focus is on survival and safety, which are super important. And yeah, and we get a lot of messaging around, you got to be the best, or be careful when you come to this thing, or patriarchy is real, or racism. And what I'm thinking is like, okay, we have those tools. Those are super important. But once we get to neutral, once we have the safety, like what else? Like what else can we focus on? And I hope my hope for people that pick up this book is that not only are we keeping those tools that our ancestors, parents, grandparents taught us, but we're also continuing to create, even if it's a little pocket of joy, of healing, of adventure and fun. And this book is just a tool guide to do that for people who look like us.
We have been fed stories about what our bodies should and should not look like. And some of them were like very direct. Like some people tell me stories of parents saying to them like, "Oh, you're putting on weight. We need to go on a diet." I have clients that have told me their first diets were when they were 8 years old and 9 years old, which is insane that people are trying to make
Yeah.
children diet, but that was a thing and still is. And then sometimes it's indirect. If you notice when you're a kid or an adult and you walk into a store and there's magazines up, there's only thin people. And if there are larger body people, then they're saying something disgusting about them. When you watch a movie, the fatter person or the larger body person in the movie is the comedic relief. They're not the star, they're not the love interest, they're not the person being sought after. So we've been getting these messages since we were born, especially in the US, that if your body is larger, it is worse, less
Hmm.
attractive, less desirable, less healthy. And if you're smaller, then your body is better. And the issue with that is it's not true. Body diversity is a real thing. It's the same way I'm 4'11. I'm done growing, honey. This is it. This is all you're gonna get. I can't go to a salon and get stretched to be 5'7". That's never gonna
Hmm.
happen. Our bodies are supposed to be different, but we have been forced to believe that everyone should be seeking the center range on the BMI, which is a whole nother trash piece of information.
Yes.
But everyone has been forced to believe we should all be leaning toward this middle space. We should all be trying to get to this average.
Hmm.
And that's really not how the world works. That's not how people work. That's not how genetics works. And my biggest piece of advice to my clients is to remember that your value it as a human is not reliant upon how much you weigh, what size you are, even how much you can do. Your value is inherent because you exist. You're here,
Mm.
you're enough. That's it. Everything else is
Hmm.
icing,
Yeah.
you know?
What comes up for me is that God has created us in a place like with all of our unique talents and gifts and our genetics and how we look. And, like it's all meant for a
Right.
purpose, right? There's no accidents whatsoever. And you're right, society has definitely put a spin on things to make us feel bad about ourselves, to
Mhm.
make us feel like we're not good enough. And so I just love, love, love the work that you're doing, because I think that this is such a powerful message for us to have a self of, or just come from a place of
Yeah.
acceptance, right? Like we're perfect the way that we are and in all of our imperfection. And so one of the things I know that folks, as they're listening to this, are going to think about, because even from a place of entrepreneurship, we were
Right.
talking a little bit before, like entrepreneurship, high performance, self-discipline, being ambitious, always having goals, like these
Right.
big goals. And sometimes it can allow for us to want to show up in this place of, I have to make sure that I have this routine. I have to make sure that I have the perfect schedule. I have to make sure, and there's a time and place for everything. I
Yeah.
believe like having routines are good and having a productive schedule is good, but there's also too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear your thoughts on because you are a business owner, you have your own practice, you have a family, you're a mom, like all the things. What tips do you have for those who are listening? And also, how are you able to incorporate this?
I think that, you know, the fuel for diet culture, for the mass message to be you're not enough, you need to fix this and do better. The fuel behind that is capitalism, right? If we can convince you that you're not good enough, you will always spend money to fix yourself. And the goalpost is forever moving, because I know for me, in my personal story, I will, go on a diet, lose some weight, and then be like, ooh, that's not enough. I got to keep going. And then get tired, feel bad about myself, gain the weight back, repeat the cycle. The idea behind, diet culture, and because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, it's fueled by this idea for capitalism. Make people believe that they are not enough so that they keep working to do more and more and more to fix themselves. Same idea in business. That same idea around perfectionism and go, 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 and no days off and never miss a Monday. You can take these same like boss babe quotes, and they're the diet culture quotes. We just change a few words.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this idea that I sleep when I'm dead, keep pushing, grind, grind, grind. You got to hustle. And it's like, whoa, you will hustle your life away.
Today, we're talking all about how to fall back in love with your business if it feels out of alignment. There's seasons of growth that we go through, there's seasons of changes that we go through, but you have to recognize the alignment piece. And so, one of the things that I am doing right now to help me fall back in love with my business is I'm looking at, why am I working early mornings, late nights, and weekends? Why am I sending emails at 8 o'clock at night? Why am I wanting to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and jump straight into straight to my desk? Like, what does that look like? And so there's key positions that I'm currently adding. There are interviews that are happening. One of the biggest things right now is for an operations type person. So it's very powerful when you start to think about the seasons of growth. And so that's some of the things that I'm going through right now. So usually what happens is when folks are like working, the late night oil, the 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 a.m. or the early mornings, late nights and weekends, the number one thing that happens is they start to hate their team. All of a sudden, the practice that I was building that maybe I loved 3 weeks ago or a year ago, I hate it. And so these are where statements come up of, I just want to burn it down. I want to fire everybody. I want to sell, my $1 million practice for $1, just to really coin one of my clients verbatim. And it's important for you to recognize that if that's what you want to do, when clients start mentioning this, I always give them permission. Like, okay, well, let's burn it down. Let's start from scratch. Let's just, let's start over. And so once they start to step into that, they're like, well, I don't really want to burn it down. I mean, there's some things that are not working, but for more or less, I can. I have a whole like gang of people who are counting on me and everything else. And so I think it's almost freeing for them, where I'm giving them permission to do exactly with what they're saying. But we also step back into, where is it coming from? Why is this happening? And so one of my number one keys of advice, anytime that you're feeling out of alignment or anytime that you feel like the business isn't serving you, actually is to take time off and to do the opposite. So instead of working the early mornings, the late nights, and the weekends, take time off. And I've had to check myself too. So from coming from a place of, I'm feeling like I need to work all these hours, I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm working less hours. I'm not working the weekends. I'm not working some of the late nights. The second that one of my clients actually called me out on it, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm out of alignment. And so at the end of the day, take the time off. Since then, I've been able to, we've had our retreat in New York, which was amazing. We have now taken a family vacation to London, which was amazing. And so it's just I'm in a place where I'm recognizing the business can still continue to do what it needs to do. For you, the practice will continue to do what it needs to do. The practice will always be moving, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to drive yourself in the ground in order to keep it going. And you don't have to put yourself in a place of resenting the practice, right? So we're building something that we have full control over, and because of how we can perceive it. If we perceive it as serving us, if we're perceiving it from a place of, this is an asset, this is something I'm grateful for, this is something that is definitely providing for my family, this is something that's making a difference in the community, that feels so much better compared to, this is a practice that's killing me, this is a practice that is forcing me to work, 50 million hours a week. Do exactly what you want to be or what you need to be when it comes to being in alignment with your values. And so, again, take time off. Take time off. That's the number one thing, is just to take the time off, so that way you can actually put yourself in a place to be grateful and a place to think. What are the biggest things that when we think about sleep, because you said it, the topic gets swept underneath the rug, and it definitely, I don't think, gets enough worthiness for what it can do for you and what it's not doing for you when you aren't getting enough sleep. So tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things, first and foremost, when it comes to sleep is the stigma around people who sleep. It's like, oh, you're lazy, or, you have to get 8 hours of sleep. Like, I'll sleep when I die. Like, I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to push through this. I've got a big presentation. I've got so much to do on my to-do list, and sleep is just not a priority for me. And those are things that are, very real, but they're also very detrimental when it comes to looking at your overall health and your productivity. And so one of the best things that you can really do for yourself as a person and your team is to really prioritize your sleep. First and foremost, I am a much better person when I have sleep. I was just joking the other day with my husband that I was like, I didn't snap at the kids not one time today because I had got 8 hours of sleep, and we are sleep training our youngest son right now. And so it had been a stretch when I haven't gotten that sleep, and it makes such a big impact. And so really today I want to talk about some of the physiological factors of sleep, but then also from a business standpoint, how it's impacting your decision making, how it's impacting your ability to regulate your emotions, and then also how it's impacting your health. Those are all categories that I think that we can learn a little bit more about sleep, and then also giving some tips on how to do it. We live in a modern day world where it's really difficult just to lay down and go to sleep. And it feels like something naturally that we should be able to do. But sometimes it's really hard to do that and unwind.
Like, what's a typical person, or what do you see at the detriment of when it comes to just us not getting enough sleep?
Well, first and foremost, I think that in life, everyone's in different stages. And so you have to give yourself grace for whatever stage or season you're in. So whether you're building a business, there's a different hustle, there's a different mentality. If you're sleep training your son, or you're a mom of toddlers, there's going to be a season where you're just not going to get a lot of sleep. And that's okay, because what you have to do is on times where you can prioritize your sleep, then those are the days and the weeks that you really want to maximize on having a good sleep routine and making sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Burnout is a real thing for even if you have a small team of 5 or a team of 500. Everybody is trying to get more done in a day, and there's things coming at you. There's meeting requests, deadlines, and things that you have to implement, and maybe some things that you missed. And it can be very frustrating and very stressful. You have your non-REM stages of sleep, which are stages 1 through 4, and then you have your REM stage of sleep. And depending on where you start earlier in the night, you're in those lighter stages of sleep. And as you progress throughout the evening, you have more deeper REM stages of sleep. And so one of the biggest things that you can gain from getting more sleep to prevent burnout is the more REM sleep you get, the better you're able to process the emotions of your day, the stress from your day. Your body can and your mind can absorb some of these things that happen, and your brain will actually kind of work these problems and these emotional issues out while you're sleeping if you give it the adequate time to have that downtime to rest. So that REM cycle is really key to helping you with burnout and processing the emotions of your day. And so if you're one of those people who, and I'm guilty of it as well sometimes, is, you're trying to get so much done and you're like, I'm going to go to bed at midnight and wake up at 5:30. Not only is that 5.5 hours of sleep, but you've pretty much cut in your REM cycle of sleep by half. And so you're not getting that really good ability to process the emotions and the stress from your coworker, the business deal, all the things that you're trying to negotiate as a business owner and an entrepreneur. You're not giving your body and your mind time to reset.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.